Hello, viewers, and welcome to Reminiscences. Our guest today is Dr. Thomas Aaze
Aaze.
Adaba, usually called Dr. Tom Adaba. He is well known in the broadcasting industry, where he spent many years in the NTA, Nigerian Television Authority, rising to the level of deputy director, and then he became the pioneer director general of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, which is the regulator of all broadcasting now in the country. And he has done many other things, including teaching at various levels, including in addition to his broadcasting career. We'll all hear about it. I'm here in his home and trying to go over his long and rich career. He was 81 in July and has now passed into the rare numbers of our elder statesmen who are still alive and enriching us with their own lives. Dr. Adaba, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And I'm struck by one thing reading about you, the constant reference to God. Indeed, your biography is called But for God.
Yes.
Let's start with God.
Yes.
What's your relationship with God?
Phew. Without him, I'm nothing. Without God, I'm absolutely nothing. And with him, I'm all he wants me to be. And right from my birth, I don't want to call it coincidental or accidental. I think it's the hand of God at work in it. My parents had 3 children before me. And each of them died at infancy. The third one who died was so heartbreaking for them. People were coming to commiserate with them and so on. Then the Reverend Father, who was our parish priest, because our house was not far away from the, just about 100, 200 yards away. Up the hill he was, and he came down, came to the house. I was told that he commiserated with my parents. And finally, after prayers, he said, don't you worry, God's going to give you your next child, who is going to be a male, and he will live. Name him after me. He was Reverend Father Thomas Duffy from Ireland. And true to life, not long after that, my mom said she got pregnant. And the mission was watching over her. Because at that time, after her pregnancy, months into it, my dad was recruited into the British Army for operation in India and what is that other place? In India, anyway. So I was even born in his absence. When my mom was 6 months old in pregnancy, the Reverend Father in charge, to protect everything, had to send her to the nearest Catholic hospital, which was within the diocese. We were all under the diocese of Benin then. And the nearest Catholic hospital was in Adaba.
You were born in Asaba.
I was born in Adaba.
Yes.
Adaba was part of Benin diocese, as well as Okene. On the 2nd of July, I was born. And the name was not difficult to come about. It's already been given to me by the priest ever before I was conceived. And my mom was there with me for some month or so, and then had to come back home to Okene. We stayed in Okene, and I grew up there. And in the mission environment, because my guardian was the catechist of the church, the parish there. And we were in there, doing some church work and so on and so forth, and then began my primary school.
You wanted to be a priest yourself?
Yes, I did.
But
I
what
did.
happened? Why did you
Okay, that was when I was about leaving the primary school. I had in mind that because I'd been a good mass server, very much involved in the church affairs, and I wanted to be a priest. So I was sent to a place, St. Peter Claver's Seminary in Okpala, in Imo, present-day Imo State. And you can imagine what it would be to leave Okene, to go through right down to Asaba, and cross the river to Onitsha, go to Ihiala, and then continue going until you get to Okpala. But that's exactly what happened. But the good thing was that at this initial stage, it was the mission that was driving us there, those who were going to the seminary. I was there for about 2 years, and I left. Well, I want to believe it wasn't my vocation. It wasn't God's will for me. So I now went into the teaching profession right from the base. Did my teacher's grade 3 in Our Lady of Schools, Ayimba. Ayimba, now in Kogi State, on the other side of the river. I spent 2 years there instead of 3. Well, they gave me that grace, and by the grace of God, I didn't disappoint the authorities. I spent 2 years. I got my teacher's grade 3 in 1960. In 61, I taught in Okene, in the Catholic mission. Then 61, I struggled to go in for my grade 2 course, but it was a bit difficult. Apparently, the parish priest, who was then the manager of schools, felt that I was doing quite a few things, in the parish, in the schools, that he wouldn't just easily release me like that, and wanted me to spend another 1 year, which I wasn't happy about at all. Fortunately for me, I did 2 entrance examinations. The one to St. Enda's Teachers College in Zaria, and the other one to Government Teachers College in Okene. In the 2 cases, I didn't seem to have any hope. But I believed very strongly in prayers. And by December, in fact, to be precise, on December 31st, I got a letter from Government Teachers College, that I've been given admission. And you can imagine what relief that was to me. It wasn't the best of things for the mission and the priest, but it was
good for you.
Ultimate.
You taught for a long time?
Well, I taught for 1 year, with my grade 3.
Yes.
Then I went into Teachers College for the grade 2 in Okene Teachers College. And when I finished, the then government of Northern Nigeria gave me an appointment to teach in that same school.
The same Okene where
Yes,
you were.
yes, yes. And indeed, I was there for 63, no, 64, 65. Because I was in the Teachers College for 2 years, 62 to 63. 64, I began the teaching appointment in Okene Teachers College. And it was then, this is the early 60s, headed by white people and what have you. I was quite comfortable there. Not comfortable in the sense that I enjoyed my work as a
grade
teacher.
2 teacher.
Yes.
Yes. So
And,
what took you out of Okene to a place like Bichi, which is a very strange...
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
I did the entrance examination to Zaria Advanced Teachers College, which was the only one in the north then. I passed very well. But something happened. When I was going for the interview for Zaria Teachers College, Zaria Advanced Teachers College, I applied to my principal, who was a white man then, to go to, for some days off and the allowances to go with it. And he replied that he would allow me to go for the interview, but there was no monetary incentive in it. I drew his attention to the GO, the general order. The second paragraph, paragraph of where all these provisions were. Then he sent for me and told me, yes, you may know the GO, but I'm not going to allow you. I'm not going to give you any money. So I told him I was very uncomfortable with that because I don't know what came into me. I told him in very strong terms. It was my entitlement. You can imagine this at that time when these white people were all there. It was my entitlement, and I expected that he would give it to me. He said, no, he wasn't. I said, okay. Then I went. So he reported this argument to the headquarters in Kaduna. At the headquarters, the man in charge of teacher training was a white man, Mr. Spicer. And the man who did this to me was Mr. Coleman. So apparently, the man in Kaduna didn't take it lightly that me, common grade 2, would confront my principal. So by October 65, I got a letter posting me to Bichi.
It was a punishment posting.
Yes. I never heard of the name Bichi in my life. So fortunately for me, there was this young man who was teaching in Kano that was posted to Okene. It was the north then.
Yes,
you can be posted anywhere.
The regional service.
Exactly. Yeah. So he now told me, oh, come on, don't worry. Bichi is just 26 miles away from Kano. It's on Katsina Road and so. So don't you worry, you'll be all right. So he gave me a lot of encouragement. And I got myself set and ready to go.
So how did you cope? An Okene man in Bichi?
I fortunately,
in the 60s too.
The environment was very, very friendly. Again, maybe because of my approach to my teaching. They were quite happy with me, with my delivery as a teacher. And I quickly made friends.
Did you live in Bichi or were you
I was in Bichi.
from Kano?
No, I was in Bichi. I was in the staff quarters in Beach, right next door to the school itself. So I stayed in there. And apparently, the decision was that I would not be allowed to go for the NCE course that year.
You were denied the chance to go to Advanced Teachers College.
Yes, for that
But
year.
you ended up now, or did you still go, or did you
No, I
end up going
didn't.
abroad for,
I didn't.
for
I
university?
I didn't.
You ended up in America for.
Yes, but that's after 1 year.
Yes.
Now, what actually happened was, by that 1965-66, the American government had given the Kano Advanced Teachers College to the Northern Nigeria government as a gift. And they brought in some Americans and what have you, their typical American institution was what they set up there. They had a television station there, they had audiovisual, all sorts of things. So when I noticed that this was now in operation, I said I wouldn't even attempt Zaria again. When I was doing it the second time, that was in 1966 now, 66, yes. So I decided to take on Kano ATC, and I got it. And fortunately for me, by September, October that year, I got in there and started my course for the Advanced Teachers College.
When did you go to the US? How
Yes.
did it, what was?
I was there. I was an ATC. I was very much involved in some social activities and so on and so forth. And the authorities generally were pleased with me. Is it July? Yes, July, the end of the year of the school. Some of these Americans will go. New ones will be in there. They had already come. So I was in my second year then. This was in 68. Oh, sorry, 68. Yes, I'm right. I was in my second year, and I was the director of socials. So I organized a concert, a big one in Wapa, in Kano. And there were various activities. So we invited all the expatriates who were there, as well as the Nigerian lecturers. Some of them were able to come, some couldn't. Those who couldn't included the chief of party, as he was called. That's the man in charge of all the Americans in the school. So things went on very well. And apparently, of course, they went back home to give the message that these are the things that happened and so on and so forth. So on Monday, the following Monday, this took place on a Saturday. The following Monday, the chief of party sent a message on the notice board that he wanted to see Mr. Thomas Adaba. So I went. I introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, wonderful. I heard such glowing things about what you did yes on Saturday." And so, "Oh, thank you very much." He apologized that he couldn't come. And he gave us £10, to support the organization, Students' Union, which I passed on to the president. And he now asked, "Do you think it is possible to replicate some of these things, in a studio situation?" I said, "Yes. Especially the dances and what have you could easily be done. We could easily invite those people in and so on and so forth." He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Go and see one Mr. Clark in the TV studio." I didn't even know that we had a TV studio there. So I found my way in there. And the first man I saw was a white man. I said, "Well, I've come to see one Mr. Clark." Then he said, What can we do for you?" I told him, well, sent by the chief of party. And he said, well, okay. What is this all about? He said, well, it's on account of what we did on Saturday, that he wanted to have some of them recorded on TV. And he said I should see Mr. Clark. All through, Mr. Clark never told me he was Mr. Clark. We're just talking. He now involved me in a lot of conversation. Fortunately, I didn't have any problems with my English then. So we were talking. Then at the end of it, he said, well, Tom, I have in mind that you please, I've been looking for somebody who will present a student's program for me on TV. And it looks like I've found one. And I said, oh, okay, thank you very much. Then he said, now go back and write down what exactly you intend to do, on a weekly basis as a student's program.
Like a script.
Yes. And of course, my ideas and whatever. And I said, okay. But may I inform you that on Saturday, we'll be having the general elections, students' union elections onto various positions in the school. This was on a Monday. And he said, yeah. And I said, maybe we can cover it. We can get the people who intend to contest elections to come here and say a word or two or sell themselves. Then he said, yes, it's a very good idea, but I have problems with time. Looks like we have not made, there isn't enough time, to make all the necessary preparations. I said, well, just give me a little bit of time to do what I can. If we fail, he said, okay, reluctantly. That very afternoon, I went onto the notice board and pasted there, all who want to contest elections in this oncoming program should meet at the television house the following morning, which was Tuesday. Look, I was surprised. The whole place was filled up. And I got in there. I went into the studio. I went to see Mr. Clark, and I said, sir, can you come and see the gentlemen that are going to contest the election? He said, no. It's your baby. Carry it. Then I said, okay. So I went back to them, told them what was expected of them, gave them 2 minutes each to speak of whatever. And I said, go get prepared. When you're coming, wear your Christmas dress so that at least you look decent and what have you in the, And everybody was excited that they will see themselves on television. I'm talking of the late 60s. At that time,
this was the school television.
Yes. And at that time, there was only one television station in the entire North. That was Radio Television Kaduna.
So that is your first exposure to broadcasting, effectively.
So the following day, which was now Wednesday, we hit the ground running. They all assembled, called them in one after the other, the president, the this, the that, and give them 2 minutes. And I anchored it. And by the time we finished, Mr. Clark himself was directing the program. He came into the studio and just carried me up and said, Tom, you did a marvelous job. Where have you been practicing broadcasting? I said, sir, I've never handled a microphone in my life. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. And I believe that that's what impressed him most.
Did it lead to other things? I mean,
I'm coming to it. Yes. And this now prompted him to recommend me among the other Nigerians who were to go to Ohio University to study and come back and take over from them.
Yeah.
So he included me in the list.
How many of you?
We're six. We're up to six. We're up to six. Yes, we're up to six.
So how was it for you to suddenly find yourself in America from Bichi?
From Bichi to Kano.
Yes.
And so he said, he never said a word until later. I got some forms from, where was it? To fill for American visa. I didn't know what it was. No, the first was to get a passport. I never had anything like that before. And before you know what's happening, I was able to get that. The next was American visa, which they handled. And lo and behold, this time around I was in my final year. And this was in February. January, February was when he told me, Tom, we shall be sending you to the United States to study. And you'll be studying mass communications. I looked at him.
And the strength of that program you did.
Yes.
The broadcasting.
And no, subsequently, I was now running a weekly program,
Okay.
students program. I couldn't believe it. Me, America, what am I?
So
I had been struggling to get into radio, television, Kaduna. So no way. The demand was very high. And
so even at that stage, you had broadcasting in mind from that experience.
I had it in mind. But before then, I had the military in mind.
Yes.
I had the military in mind. And that's why in my NCE, I did physical education. So that when I finished my NCE, I would easily get a passage into NDA. But that never materialized. My second choice was broadcasting, which now came up, and I blessed God for that.
So tell us about America. You found yourself in Ohio?
I was there. I was in Ohio.
Yes.
You know what it is with JJCs. I got in there and got my orientation in Washington, D.C., got into America, in fact, to Michigan too, where we did a certificate course in mass communications. That's where I got my first certificate in mass comm. Then came down to Ohio onto the business. This was during the fall.
Because in your plan, you wanted to do a master's.
I couldn't do it.
Yes.
I couldn't do that because I had finished my first degree, which is what they said I should come for. And they gave me 3 years. I did it in 1 year, 9 months. They were very happy about that. And they said I should go home and serve my country.
But let me ask you about life in America. You're a young man from Kennedy, Kano.
Yes.
Was it strange?
Of course it was. I mean, quite a number of things. Even the entire learning experience, the educational, the system.
Yes.
Lecturers will come and will give you assignments, not thinking that maybe other lecturers are going to are giving you similar assignments. Fortunately, Kano had prepared me for that because many of the American lecturers who were there were doing the same thing. So I was kind of used to that. And there was a day I was going for a course in the education department. And as I was descending the hill to go to some flakes were falling on my jacket. And they were brownish. And I was wondering, where on earth is this coming from? So when I got to the gate of McCracken Hall, where I was to do, I asked, what are these? He said, this is snow. I said, what? Snow? Which I had all along heard of, but I'd never seen. incredible. It became white later.
Yeah.
It was kind of brownish right from the beginning. It was an amazing experience. In fact, when I was in the class, I was looking through the window, I was seeing how it was falling, and it distracted my attention in the class. So it was quite some
But otherwise,
experience.
did you suffer any discrimination, any deprivations?
No,
as a foreign student?
not exactly. Not exactly.
Yeah.
Not exactly. As a matter of fact, I don't know. They gave me some I had some regards from those I was in contact with. I don't know if I was much of a mixer as such. I think to some extent I was, but I never had any problem.
So here you were, you finished your first degree.
Yes,
You came home.
I came home.
What were you doing at home?
I came home. I was teaching in Kano
The
86.
same Kano, yes.
And handling the station, the TV station.
People will assume that you're all your life in NTA. So it's,
Yes.
it's surprising.
Yes,
You started with Benue Plateau Television.
it
right?
was. Benue Plateau Television. When in 1977, this was under Obasanjo, all the state-owned television stations were now converted to
I
NTA.
see.
We're all NTA, NTA Enugu, NTA Kano, NTA this,
So
NTA.
that's when you became part of NTA.
NTA.
Yes. And your career in NTA, I think at some point you left to the TV college while you're still in Jos?
Yes, it is still NTA. I was just posted to TV college.
How was that experience?
Oh,
You
wonderful.
seem to have stayed so long there.
It was quite good. It was quite,
You are the pioneer
yes, quite challenging.
director?
Yes, a pioneer principal of
Principal.
the TV college. This was in 79, 80. I attended the interview and they gave me the job and started from nothing.
From
Absolutely.
NTA Jos
Yes,
to that job.
to NTA
Principal
Television
NTA,
College.
yes.
Yes. Started from nothing. Fortunately, NTA Jos was very, very helpful, in the courses that I ran. And I think it's my teaching experience that they looked at and they gave me that job. I don't know. But I started off from nothing. I was my messenger, I was my driver, I was my this, I was my that, until I now began to employ people one after the other. And I depended very much on NTA Jos, for a lot of things that I initially did to get started as a principal of the TV college. Then, I hired a place.
Yes.
We ran the first course, which was on animation, television animation. We had, fortunately, the headquarters arranged for somebody who came all the way from California to come and teach it. And we used NTA Jos because they had the equipment and so on and so forth. It turned out very well because of all the various stations in the country, And by the time they finished, back home, they were now beginning to animate things for children's programs and whatever.
Give you a higher appointment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they did that. And as a result, many left NTA. We now had to replenish, by training on an ad hoc basis, a number of people. That's why we ran short courses then, but then we later began to upgrade and so on and so forth.
But you yourself moved from being a teacher of broadcasters to NTA.
Yes.
Ending up even in operations.
Yes.
Tell us, what do you think is the highlight of your career in NTA?
Two things. My experience in Festac, 77. I was appointed the assistant chairman presentation. And it wasn't particularly funny because, the various NTA stations that came in to run it. And people you didn't know before, for you now to begin to assign duties to them and so on and so forth, it wasn't particularly easy. But thank God, a number of them, were quite cooperative. You give them, in the roster, place them here, they are there. In others, no. The rascals would not even go. They would look for a place to be drinking beer in the National Theatre, And sometimes I would go around and catch them there. I said, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to have been in such a venue, either TBS or whatever. Oh, all right, so we'll go now. And, because they were from different stations, you had no control over them as such. But it was quite some experience. I undertook to do some of these jobs, where there were no people, And for the entire experience, it was a very long-lasting one. It was great, being involved in that in Festac, because here it was meant for the whole world, the black world. I was not only directing, producing, but also running commentaries, and so on and so forth. It was 1 month, one real month, I tell you, one solid month. I virtually broke down at one stage, but it was, I would call it a highlight. But as if that wasn't enough, 2 or 3 months after, Jos was to head was the base for World Scouts Jamboree. And my GM said, you will handle that. But I thank God.
You were GM at some point?
Yes. Working in the station and then, taking on this principalship of the TV college, all in Jos.
Right.
Then, as if that was not enough, when after 7 years, I requested for time off. I beg your pardon. There was a stage in NTA Jos. I requested for time to go and do a master's in Indiana University. They graciously agreed, and I went and did it, and came back early enough for the elections. And I was very much involved.
This is 79 elections?
79, yes. So that's where I did my master's. Now, when I finished the 7 years in the TV college, I requested for a leave of absence to do my PhD, which I did in Jos. And by 1980 I had finished.
So this was all with a plan to go back to teaching?
No, I actually thought, go back to teaching to some extent, yes. I actually thought that having a PhD and being the principal of a college was an added advantage for me, But when I finished, NTA said I should come to the headquarters.
Headquarters.
So I went to the headquarters.
This was Lagos then?
Yes.
Yes.
In 1990. I was there. I was there still as an assistant director. And quite a number of nasty things happened, but I thank God we survived it all.
Yes, but one of the nastiest, if I may say so, was this attempt to retire you while you are deputy director.
Yes.
What happened and how did it turn into a bigger appointment in the end rather than retirement?
Again, but for God. But for God.
Why were you being retired as deputy director?
Actually, what happened was that the minister noticed that NTA was top-heavy. And he now had to write NTA that NTA was top heavy, so they should trim down. And they gave conditions for retiring people. You know, ill health, constant absenteeism, disciplinary cases, and so on and so forth. And I did not fit into any of this. Instead, my case was the reverse. I had letters of commendation, you know, on me in my file.
Yet you are on the list of the retirement.
I was number one, really. So when they said they should do this, they put down my name on the list.
You are ready to go.
How could I be ready to go? In fact, I didn't even know. They were about to send it out. They were now making photocopies. When one of the messengers who was working with me before came and met me and said, Oga, what do you do these people now? I said, which people? He said, this DJ and all. I said, what did happen? He said, no, he said, then tell me. Now I just come out for that place. They don't put your name down. They won't retire. They send the name to, now you'll be number one. Send the name to the minister. I said, is that so? He said, yes. I said, don't worry. If it pleases God that they should do this to me, they will succeed. But if it's not God's will, nothing will happen. You shouldn't worry. You know what this messenger told me? Oga, you and this your God all the time. You know people, go and tell them to cancel this thing. I said, don't worry. Those people are not greater than God. God will handle it.
So how is it that you are appointed DG of Nigerian Broadcasting?
I'm coming to it.
Instead, yes.
I'm coming to it. Then, when I finished with him, this was evening. I went to the church. I went for mass, and you know, I surrendered everything to God. At that material time, I had been given an assignment in Lokoja to set up the TV station there, which I was doing, going and coming. So apparently, this thing was sent to the Honorable Minister. The minister saw my name there. I think he wasn't comfortable with it because we had worked in ABU together before.
Who was this minister?
Oyobare.
Okay,
Professor Oyobare.
Professor Oyobare, yes.
So he said, he sent for me. So on one of those occasions when I came back from Lokoja, you know, my DG called me and said, Honorable Minister wants to see you. And I said, okay. Apparently he said it so gleefully, you know, believing that Minister was just going to tell me, begin to pack your things that you are. So I went. I went and I met the minister, and the minister said, well, Tom, we've come a long way. We've been together in ABU. I know what you were capable of doing, and so on and so forth. And when I came to do my sabbatical in Jos, I saw your work, and I was very impressed. So he never told me that my name wasn't anything. He just said, there's a job coming up in the ministry. Will you be interested? By that time, I had a whole pile of my CV, which I was sending around everywhere because I was really tired of NTA. Oh, NTA really oppressed me. But anyway, and I said, oh, yes, I would. Then he said, go and get your CV. I went, picked up one, came back within the hour. Gave it to him on the Olo Road. And he said, that's perfectly all right. He will see what he could do. That was the genesis of my going.
So your colleagues were surprised to hear
everybody.
They are now the DG.
Everybody.
Are you happy with MBC now as it is constituted and operating?
Well, I think it's the politicization of it that seems to give it a very bad name now. I'm very uncomfortable about
What do you mean politicization?
It's being run as a political agency. I wish they had been allowed to do the professional job of really regulating the industry. And that's what we did, and by the grace of God, we succeeded tremendously.
Were you tougher on the broadcast stations than they are now?
Well,
Were you punishing more, penalizing?
again, there were not as many as this. And the private broadcast houses were new. They needed to be midwifed. In fact, an impression was given that NBC was set up to take care of just private broadcasting, which was not. It was to take care of broadcasting generally. And I tried as much as possible. This was a carrot and stick approach, and it seemed to have worked out very well. And that's why the other good thing is that with quite a number of, a few creative people who got into that industry, private broadcasting. And when they came in with a bang. They came in to challenge the status quo. Because at that time, stations were running from 4 o'clock in the evening to 12 midnight, and that's all. That's all. But when the private broadcasting came on board, these guys wouldn't take this 4 to 12 stuff.
So
They
24
went
hours.
straight on to 24 hours. And before you know what's happening, they had how do I call it? They had taken away all the viewers from these older stations. So much so that they themselves, the older stations, had to now begin to emulate the new stations. 24 hours a day. They were wondering how on earth would they be able to do it, but they did it. And I was very, very proud of them. At first thing I told all of them when I.
Are you happy with the proliferation of all these new broadcast stations?
Each has its own assigned duty. Each has its own viewership. And if they are working on such viewers, then there is a variety.
You don't think there are too many to serve? I mean, the market is too small for them to release?
I don't know. There are too many. To some extent, I will say yes, because I'm not too sure NBC has the staff, the number of staff to take care of the number of stations that are everywhere around. That's why sometimes, stations assume, we're not being watched, we'll do this. And sometimes they get caught and whatever. But proliferation would have been quite good if only we are professional in our approach. Because each area, each interest, each constituency is defined.
Do you still watch the NTA?
Yes, I do. I do.
What do you like about
News. News.
You still think they're the best in time, even among this competition?
I don't watch NTA alone. I watch Aaze. I watch channels, and I watch AIT. So
you still see a lot of TV?
Oh yes, I do.
Spend a lot of time seeing TV.
I do. Yeah. In the morning, I watch Aaze TV till sometime around 11 or so. Well, not even 11. 11 they go into the business world. That's the time I go for a bath and get myself set. And 12 o'clock they have their news, but I go to church. I attend mass and, on TV. And 1 o'clock, I go back to channels if they have news. If they don't have news, sometimes they are covering special events like this Port Harcourt man.
Wiki.
Wiki.
What about international stations? You don't care for them? BBC?
No, I'm not too sure.
Others?
No,
Yeah.
I watched that on my handset. BBC and CNN.
Tell us a bit about your family life. I know you have been married for 56, 57 years. What has that taught you?
Taught me?
Yes.
Lord Almighty. Taught me. But family life is great. It's the best. It's wonderful. There are trying times, but you survive them and you feel good. I remember when I had my wife in Kano.
So she was there from the beachy days?
Yes, no, not beachy days,
Okay.
but when I came into Kano now, when the riots, the difficulties.
66?
Yes. 66 December was when I married her, and we got
So you married in 66?
66
December.
years. And 67 we were in Kano together. And some of these political developments were all in our presence. But the good thing was we're living in the city. In the city, not in Sabongari. In fact, where was at our house now? There was a primary or secondary primary school directly opposite us. What's the name of this place? God, it's just by Kofa Nasarawa.
Yes.
Kofa Nasarawa. And we were there. There were very, very tense times that the Lord saw us through it all for prayers. And we had our first daughter in Kano. Well, okay, in Kano, but actually she was born in Kaduna because my parents were still there then. When she was very heavy, my wife was very heavy, she went down to Kaduna.
Yeah.
And even our second daughter, she was born in Kaduna. It was after that, when I was now teaching in ATC, that we took responsibility for, but it's not been completely easy. But
Not a bed of roses.
yes, but we survived it all, and we have every reason to give thanks and praise to God. And in all of these, the Lord has blessed us with 6 biological children and 2 adopted ones. And virtually all of them are married now.
How much is your life spent in God's work or church work? You mentioned going to church every
Now
day.
I devote quite some time to it. I mean, what else could I have been doing?
Yes.
At this, I should have had my boarding pass by now. So
These days they delay the flights.
they
considerably.
have, and well, for whatever reason, I thank God for that. But I do quite a bit. But now that I have not been too sound, actually, is the surgery that I did in India that has caused this problem in my movement and other
Mobility.
things. Yes. I had a spinal problem. I took it to India, and they did a very sloppy job of it, I must say. That I had to be operated on the spine 3 times for just one issue.
In the same India?
Yes, in the same place for that period. And even they were supposed to have taken care of the cervical and the lumbar, but they did only the lumbar because of the developments arising from their carelessness. So I had surgery on my spine 3 times. It's only when I came back in 2015 or so that I reported to a Nigerian about, then my cervical problem was beginning to create a lot of problems for me. And I was told about this Nigerian. And I went to him. And lo and behold, he did a marvelous job. Did a marvelous job. My cousin, who was a professor of medicine in Canada, was at home then, and he said he would want to stay, be in the theater. I told Dr. Ogumbo, and he said, sure. My cousin was there. And he saw what was done, and he was very, very proud. So he didn't know that Nigerians would have such people, taking care of all these spinal surgeries.
So you're much better now?
I'm much better now, but, I still have difficulties, But I'm better than lying down. So I'm quite happy and proud that this is how it is with me at 81. Ordinarily, I would have been certainly much stronger than this, but for this spinal problem.
Well, may God give you long life and strength and happiness.
Good health.
To
Yes.
enjoy the period of life now, which is more relaxing. And I think viewers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with now Professor Tom Adaba, an old teacher of both education and of communication, who spent a lot of time in the Nigerian Television Authority and also the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, among other responsibilities that I didn't touch, including African assignments in the Council for Communication. He's still here with us, inspiring us with the younger ones in this job. Thank you for joining us, and until another edition of Reminiscences, goodbye.